right. Well, I'm so excited for today's guest. We have Phoenix White on our podcast. But before I introduce Phoenix, I want to share a little bit about her so that you know all about Phoenix and all the amazing things that she's doing. So, Phoenix White is revolutionizing the boundaries of mental health as a pioneering force in the realm of transformative healing, expansion, and optimization, driven by an unapologetic dedication to fostering profound personal growth and self exploration. She's the founder of the Sacred Celestial and has garnered over 400 plus life-changing rave reviews, nominated for Retreat of the Year by Wonderland. She's also a best-selling author of her book Redefining Strong, a journey of finding yourself, true healing, and spiritual recalibration, a riveting story of self-discovery, sacrifice, and healing. So Phoenix, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I'm so excited about today's conversation.
Too. I feel like I've known you for so many years, but I don't know you at the same
I
time.
know. I know. I think we officially met online through a webinar. I don't even know what year it was at this point.
It was at least like 5 years ago or more
Right.
than 5 years ago.
I know. It's so interesting how the internet is and how we can connect with people that we haven't met in person, but you feel like you've known them forever too.
For sure.
So this has definitely been a long time coming with you to come on the show. So I can't wait to talk a little bit about your story because I know the mission you have now, but for people that are listening and they're wondering, where did you start your journey? Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into the spiritual work?
It's so funny. I always get that question and I never really know how to answer it because I feel like it started when I was a really little girl.
Yes.
I'm sure it probably started like that for you too, where you start having these gifts and these things start to pop up and you start to see things and know things and have all these experiences. So I think it started when I was really, really young, but I think that there were pivotal catalysts that like kind of propelled me like big leaps, you know what I'm saying? And so some of those big leaps would be brain surgery. It would be just like going through breakups and like when you have these big jumps. And then the last biggest one would be when I went traveling around the country, working in orphanages, and then moving internationally just 4 years ago. That was another big leap. And then now this one. So it's
Yes.
been some crazy jumps for me,
So
actually.
can we go back to the brain surgery? Because that's a huge one. Can you share a little bit about your story and what happened there?
Yeah, so I have what's called an AVM. It's Arterius venous malformation. It's when your veins and your arteries form like a cluster in your brain instead of them laying flat and taking blood to and from and oxygen and all that stuff. Mine's formed a cluster. So what happened is when the blood would try to come through, it would run into this. It looked like a rubber band ball in my head. It would run into it. And so it would have like a collision. So it would be blood just having collisions running into this cluster in my brain. And what happens with that is you can have a seizure, you can have a heart attack, it can swell and it can explode. So different things start to happen. So for me, what happened is my ears started buzzing. So what I thought was ear ringing was really my blood crashing into this
Wow.
thing. So it was like, that's what I would hear. And I was like, what is, I would go through my house and plugging like all kinds of electronics in the refrigerator. And, my hearing it was like having super hearing, but it was inside of my head and I didn't know it. And
Wow.
so, once I went and I got diagnosed with it, because I started getting faint. So when it would happen, it would knock off my equilibrium. So I would just kind of like, you know, kind of fall and then like catch myself because I would just lose like a little bit of consciousness, like going into slow motion and then come back. It's very
That's
strange.
scary. I'm sure that was scary for you during that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Cause I
So,
had Shamir was very little at that time. And so having a child, being a single mom at that time, and we were living by ourselves, it was like, dang, I don't want to be driving and have a seizure. I don't want to be, I don't want to be somewhere with him where I put him in an unsafe situation And so they were like, well, you have a few options. You can get it cut out or you can do embolization, but you'll be in a high risk for brain bleeding for 2 years. And
Wow.
so
Mm.
I chose the longer route because the cutting of it would cause me to possibly not be able to, I would be weaker on one side and I wouldn't be able to create or put things together like words and sentences if they hit even so slightly the wrong part because it was sitting on my motor skills.
Wow. That's
So
a huge thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to ask you during that process of going through those changes, getting the surgery and then coming out of it, did
Mhm.
you find yourself reevaluating life and like what you thought was important? And then after
For,
something like that, I'm sure everything shifted.
for sure. Like 1000%. I remember when I was in the hospital, I didn't know if I was going to actually live through it or not. So there was a point when I was actually under, and I've told the story maybe 2 or 3 times, but I was under and I was floating in this dark space that was really warm and really beautiful. There's a little baby light far away,
Oh,
but I was having a really good time in this dark space that was, I was just floating upside down, like weightlessly.
yeah.
And I heard this voice calling me and saying my name, and I was ignoring it because I didn't want to be disturbed because that was the best rest I had had because I've been struggling and going through so much. And I finally came back and they were like, we thought we lost you because it took us a really long time to bring you back. And I was like, yeah, I was ignoring you guys.
You
I was ignoring.
remember it.
No, I remember. And I remember right after that, I packed my stuff and I was like, I'm moving to Miami. So I actually moved to Florida because I needed to be near water to heal. And then while I was there, I started getting visuals, all kinds of things. I saw past lives. I saw me in Egypt. I just started seeing a lot more. It was like it unlocked something that I had locked away from previously. So I used to see a lot when I was little, and then I kind of like stopped it because it got kind of scary, I think, after,
Hmm.
and then it unlocked it again.
That's pretty amazing that like you took the golden nugget from the situation that could not have been a great outcome at the end, where you could have been, I'm going to be crippled with fear because I just had this surgery and I'm going to limit myself and put myself in a box and stay here. But you trusted your intuition and you left and you went to
Yeah.
Miami and went by the water. So that's huge right there. And sometimes it feels like a lot of trauma that comes up in life, it does something where it creates this beauty. You're not seeing it right away, but it can come, right?
Great.
And I know you work with a lot of clients that have also experienced different things. Can you share a little bit about that? About, I know we're switching
Right.
from this huge event in your life, and then
Yeah.
you're intuitively being guided and seeing different things. How did you get into working with your clients? Were you doing that before the brain surgery?
I feel like I've always been doing it in a informal way.
Right.
So I was the person that everybody always came to kind of help make sense of their situations or to compartmentalize things or to help them see different point of views because I'm like one of those people who doesn't take a side. So I take the side of what I feel is right
Yeah.
more so than I'm gonna take your side because I know you. And I'm gonna take your side. Like, I'm not
Right.
like that. It's like I just pick what's right. I don't pick the side of the person.
Yeah.
Um, but I think with clients, I think a lot of my clients, which may be true for other teachers, healers, and um, we attract similar people, similar to what we've survived or healed from. So mines would be more like trauma, abuse, um, things with self-worth, issues with relationships, people who have a lot of sexual abuse. I get a lot of people who have a lot of sexual abuse from going through that. So I think it's because I can understand them.
So when you work with those clients that you're bringing in and they're, attracted to you and they're pulled to you and guided,
Yeah.
what types of steps do you take when you're working with them? I know that you work with a lot of different sound, all different elements. So I want you to go into that, what you do with your clients when you're working with them.
So I'm more of an actionable step kind of coach.
Yeah.
I'm not really the person that has clients come to me that just need more of the babysit version, if that makes sense. I'm more
Yes.
of the get to it, let's get to work, let's get rid of it. What are we gonna do?
Right.
I'm more the let's create actionable steps to remove the issue or to learn how to better handle the situation because there are some things that are never going away. You just learn how to deal with them better, in healthier ways. Some things like, a lot of people have grief, that love for those people and those relationships, they're not going away.
Right.
You just got to learn how to deal with them in healthier ways. And so it just depends on the person. So me, I am an actionable step kind of chick.
Yes.
I'm
I
very,
I love that.
I'm very rah-rah. Sometimes I'm very compassionate and I'm understanding, but the thing that comes with having been through a lot of those things, I know that if you're coming or attracted to a person like me, you're ready to do the work to be able to like function for real, for real. You don't need to just be stuck in the victimized state. You know,
Yes.
I'm not really good with people who want to be stuck in the victimized state, and we talk about the same thing over and over. It's like, let's talk about it, let's get to it, let's figure out the actionable steps so that we can move past it or move with it.
Yes. I love
So
that. I totally agree. That's exactly how I am. And it's one of those things where if you're going to move forward, you have to take some sort of step. And I know you have some amazing retreats that are coming up too. But I want to hear a little bit about those retreats and the things that you do that might be outside the box. If we could have that conversation because I would love to learn more about that from you.
yeah, my retreats are crazy. And what I've learned is my type of crazy is for specific type of people, like
Right.
everything's not for everybody, but I definitely like the more raw, hands-on, somatic, multisensory approach to healing. So I'm not really the consistent sit in one spot and just, sit. I'm like the sit in one spot with some seasoning. It's like if
Right.
we're gonna sit in this one spot, I need to hear some music that makes my soul move if I'm sitting in this one spot so that I can travel, like
Yeah.
I need more stimulation. That's just my personality. I'm more of a creative. Um, but yet stillness is important, but my retreats are wild. And so we do like a mixture of a lot of things between plant medicine. Um, we'll do martial arts, we'll break shit, we'll smash stuff, we'll set things on fire. And then we'll also do the quiet things. We'll also stare at each other and we'll do like different exercises underwater. Like there are just, it's like endless possibilities, but mines are like, come if you dare type of events.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
like, don't come to my events really, unless it's like a sound bath. Even that has seasoning. Like, I'm not just playing sound bowls. I'm in the
Right.
water. You know what I'm saying? I'm singing live. I'm doing all kinds of things in our floating sound bath. So it still all has, yes, I'm playing the sound bowls, but it still has seasoning with it.
Yes. And I
You know?
love that. I love that. There's so many pieces to it because everyone needs different things. So
Yeah.
I'm curious if you had to give one example, like you mentioned plant medicine. Can you tell us, do you have any stories of things that have happened for you? And I know those are sacred stories, or experiences that you felt like you had a beautiful moment that you want to share with us, or something that maybe happened for a client where they had a breakthrough um, that sticks out to you?
Gosh, there's so many. I can tell you what I've seen and what I've also seen in myself. I think with plant medicine, and everybody has their own opinion on plant medicine, but I feel like when it's done the right way and it's honored and it's used as the sacred medicine, it opens you up in a way that you can't imagine. So like people like us that do spiritual work, or we've seen glimpses of things, or we've had dreams of things or visions, or whatever it may be. It's all kind of stuff. When you go on plant medicine, it made me feel like I'm not crazy. This stuff is really real. It's like,
Yeah.
this is why, you get to see specifically, or for me, I saw my past lives. I saw what I was doing, which related to what I was doing now. I understood why I know how to do certain things so easily. It's
Right.
already in me. I used to already do it. I just had
Yes.
to remember. And I think the remembering from plant medicine and the opening up my brain and giving it more access to without limitations, it is mind blowing. Like, because it's not like you're sitting and having a conversation with someone else. You literally are coming face to face with yourself, and you're getting downloaded into. No one's like, you are this. Nobody's diagnosing you with all this stuff. You really are getting this downloaded into
Right.
you on your own. And I think that is so profound. It's like, well, where is this coming from? That must really mean that we are all really interconnected in
Yes.
some beautiful way. Like,
Right.
that is the most intelligent species on the planet, I would say, is AI. Like, the fact that it can communicate with trees on this side of the world underneath its little network, and take this fungi and it connect with trees on the other side of the world, is mind blowing. So when we are ingesting these things, like, all this information just comes alive, and you're able to process emotions and, like, traumas, and even unleashing your fun and your
Yeah.
creativity. It doesn't always have to be so heavy, but I've seen, especially in my culture, like, which has made me do this even more, was them have a way to reach the deeper parts of trauma that were ancestral, and be
Yeah.
able to understand them and uproot it so that they can heal the deeper ancestral traumas that are causing havoc in their lives and just kind of repeating themselves. Like, people are really able to get really clear. I've seen the most, like, if I go through all my reviews, that's why I, like, literally took and posted people's whole reviews on my website. And
Yeah.
they're like this long, so that people could get the full picture of what was happening to others in these ceremonies, because it's hard to articulate, but it's mind blowing, the profound change that they've had and the work that they are now doing on themselves, because
That's,
you just don't get it. And then it's
yeah.
like, oh, life's changed. It's like, okay, I got the information on how I need to change, the work I need to do now. I have the clarity on the next steps I need to take. So you still have to do the work, but
Right.
it gives you the access to get clear on what that work is.
That's
And
what it's funny you said that because that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, after that mind-blowing experience where you have the spiritual awakening or whatever you want to call this beautiful experience, this breakthrough of seeing the truth of what's in you, then what do you do with it? It's almost like you have to integrate it into life after that. And that's a whole nother step. But I was wondering, I'm sure everyone leaving a retreat like that or experiencing these breakthroughs, their whole life changes when they leave. Sometimes things fall apart to come back together after
yeah,
something like this. Have you found that?
all the time. Even
Okay.
in my own life, like they literally fall apart, and some of those pieces don't come back together. They fall apart, and a whole nother thing is built.
Right.
And some people come back and they have a different set of compassion and understanding and relatability and love for what they already have, that they were maybe even
Yes.
taking for granted. So it's different for each person. Some people, they go home and they realize, this is not the relationship I want to be in. That
Right.
happens. Some people are like, you know, gosh, I can't even explain how many men as well that have come
Mhm.
to these ceremonies and realized, gosh, I haven't cried in so long. Like, just to release the heaviness of just carrying so much all the time, just to
Right.
have a moment to set everything down and to reevaluate and then to go back. So it's something that's indescribable, but integration is absolutely necessary in order for it to last,
Right.
because it will be temporary. If not, it'll be like, oh, I got excited, but it didn't create change.
Right. So what do you find for people listening? Some people listening might say like, well, I didn't get to a retreat, but I want to know like, how do I get through this specific trauma? And I know every trauma is different. Like it's going to be complicated to say one thing to do, but where
Right.
would they go from there? Once they see something, they spot it. Where do you feel like they should go next after they identified like, wow, this is my truth. This is what I'm feeling, whether they saw it in a meditation or during a ceremony, then what? What kind of steps would you recommend for them?
I think having an integrated process. So everybody's process is different. So it's like, okay, if you go to a plant medicine ceremony, you're going to need to break all these pieces down because you're going to come back with a plethora of information.
Yeah.
It's just going to be coming back to you because you don't remember everything. It's not like when
Right.
you're drunk and you forget what happened. It's like, I don't know what happened last night. No, this is like, I remember everything, you know?
Right.
So there's journaling practices. There is also meditative practices. I think the journaling, honestly, when you do these meditative things, is really important, and doing like shadow work questions like you can answer. There's a lot of workbooks. You can get them on Amazon. I'm putting one out too, where you can
Awesome.
just ask yourself certain questions to integrate, whether you went to a plant medicine ceremony or whether you had a meditation or went to a sound healing and had some visions, or it's like, okay, what do I do with this information next? What did I see? What is my next step? How do I integrate this into my life? What was I supposed to learn from this? What was the the plot of this story that was shown to me? Like, what was I supposed to get from this? And I think
Love that.
once you go through these steps, it's like you have to ask questions. And
Yes.
the more you ask questions, of course, the more answers you get, the more clarity you get. The more clarity you get, the more free you become.
I love that. It gives me goosebumps when you just shared it. I totally agree. And I want to ask you, I'm thinking about these experiences that I've had over the course of my life where there might be these little awakened moments.
Right.
And I found even with clients that I've worked with that sometimes when you go and share them with certain people, you don't get the same effect. Sometimes it's better to keep it sacred, right? So what is your recommendation with that? Like after they go from these beautiful retreats, they leave your retreat and then they want to go tell everyone that they had this
Yeah.
amazing experience. They might not have the same result that they want,
No,
you
they're not going to have the same
know?
results because they weren't there. So your
Right.
mystical fantasy, mind blowing experience, they're going to be like, that sounds kind of nuts.
Right.
Like you sound crazy. You were a what? And you saw a what? They're not going to get it. You get what I mean? It's similar to like how you're a medium,
Right.
right? So no one's really going to understand half of what you're saying. I
No.
mean, they can get the messages, but they're not going to understand the visuals and the experience that you're personally having because it's your gift, right? So it's similar to that. You have to find your sacred space, but I always tell people to honestly keep it to yourself and kind of journal or talk to the people that were there. So we put them in groups. So
Yeah.
the group that was there, they can also contact each other if they choose to, if they're given permission. We have one-on-one coaching that we also provide for the last ceremony I just did. I think I coached maybe 13 people for a month.
Wow. After
Just
this, after.
yeah, just integrative sessions, just 30 minutes, they were included. So it was an additional thing they had to pay for, but just to make sure that they understood where to go next, what to do next.
Yes.
And so I have a whole list of things that they probably shouldn't do. It's like the things that you watch and the people that you talk to and the stuff that you digest, you're way more sensitive. So you have to
Right.
be really careful. Don't expect everybody to get you because it will be like a buzzkill, you
Yes.
know, and then it's like that high that you were on kind of like goes down because you're trying to tell the wrong people who don't get it.
It makes
So
sense. And sometimes it could change your perception. Like when you go through this awakening, it does lose, it can lose the buzz. You feel like you lost a buzz and you're like, wait, what did happen? Is that crazy? And then you go
yeah,
back and second guess and go against the intuition. So I love that you shared that. The other thing that I was thinking about too, when you're in the space of feeling like you're one and you're intuitively guided and you feel the energy and the inner knowing of all this information, Have you found that manifesting is really easy after that because you're so connected and in tuned?
It depends.
Okay.
So I think manifesting for me has always been kind of easy, but it has seasons.
Okay.
So there are some seasons where I'm like manifesting really fast, right? And then there's some seasons I'm like, what the what is happening right now? Like,
Right.
why am I going through this? And why am I dealing with this? Like, why is nothing happening? And sometimes it's just a reset, a reevaluation, a pruning season. And you may not think you're manifesting the stuff that you specifically want, but that may not be the direction that you're supposed to go in. And so
Yeah.
it's like it slows down so that you can really reevaluate all the things so that then you can just pop back up. And so
That
it
makes
just
sense.
there's seasons where people are walking around like life is life and I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do. I'm
Right.
tested right now. And
It's
so
like
it's
the bamboo tree. You don't see it coming up from the bottom and then it sprouts up. And it seems like it happened so fast, but really there was some stuff underneath happening that you didn't realize it at
exactly.
different points. I
Here's
love
the thing.
that.
Every time there's some great knowing, right? You then now have to go back and reevaluate the stuff that you've been tolerating. And
Right.
so
That's
it's
true.
like there's yes, people think when you have these awakenings that it's just all hunky dory and magical, but it also comes with some bullshit that you're
Yeah.
gonna have to like deal with and like weed through. And so yes, it's great and it's easy to manifest, right? But then sometimes it's like this is whack right now.
Right.
You just got to kind of flow with it, and just be
Yes.
like that season. But remembering your history is always so important. It's like if I remember my history, anytime I've ever gone through something, I've always come out of it. You know, I've never not had anywhere to live. I've never, even if I've had financial issues and I've gone up and down, or even if I had relationship issues and it's gone up and down, I've always some kind of way found my way out of it. The universe pulls me out of it some kind of way. I never drowned. I
You
felt like
always
I had
keep
a
going.
life jacket, but I never actually drowned. So I still made it. So my history shows that I'm going to be all right. So that's kind of what I tell people. It's like just go back to your history. You've never drowned,
I
you know.
absolutely love that because there's so many people listening to this
Mhm.
episode thinking I'm in the middle of my trauma. Like there's some people that are grieving and they're really stuck in their trauma because they're missing their loved one that's not here. Their whole life is flipped upside down and they thought their life was going to go a certain way and it's going different. There's other people that are dealing with relationship issues. They thought that they were going to be with them forever and there's breakups. And then there's people that maybe thought they had one purpose and then they lost the job or their purpose changed, So I know people listening to this episode um and thinking like about that comment that you said that you never drown. Like you might have been having a difficult time, but you never drown. Looking at the history, you still made it through. And that's really, really powerful for people to hear too.
Yeah, it's just, and that's what I stick with that, because when we do this work, it is not, it's not super easy all the time. It's
Right.
fulfilling and it's fun and it's beautiful and magical, but it's also sometimes really hard. It's
Right.
it's it's hard to do what we do. We also have to deal with attacks, spiritual attacks, and like lots of energy. And we also have our own lives and our own shadows also come up that we have to process while we're helping others to process theirs. It may like stimulate something. It's like, oh wow, wait a minute, I need to heal something there. So
Yeah.
it constantly also doing our own work. So this path is not the easy path, but it's really fulfilling.
Right. And it's
Um,
funny, one thing that I notice with you, and I'm very particular about who I communicate with and who I interview a lot of different people, but the one thing that I've noticed with you over the years is you could just feel it, authenticity. Like it's just it exudes off of you and that's so important in this field because there's so many spiritual healers that are just doing what looks good. It's not really like who they are and like what they stand for. They're just going off of what everyone else is doing. But I feel like from you, you've always shared from what I've seen from a place of like, this is who I am. And I'm just going with my intuition and where I'm guided. And just talking to you today, it shows it even more so because we're having this conversation back and forth, but you can feel it online. And I think I want to ask you the question because there's a lot of you're welcome. There's a lot of leaders out there listening to this conversation too. What would you say to them if they're in a space where they don't know their way and they're just kind of replicating what other people are doing, but they don't know where their authentic path leads? What would you suggest?
I just had this conversation
Did
yesterday
you?
yes, because it's been something that has been so intensely on my mind. Even when I am shifting myself, because like I'm still going through different shifts. It's like, oh, I was doing that, but I'm not gonna do that no more. Who am I right now? Like,
Yeah,
like I'll get with myself and be like, who the fuck are you? Like
right.
who are you really right now? Because who you were last year, it may not be the same. Like I'm constantly leaping and becoming more of myself as I get to know me even more, right? There's these things that unlock. It's like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And so, what I would tell other leaders and healers is to stop being regurgitators.
Yeah. Yes.
'Cause I feel like, people have this certain sound for how you're supposed to be when you're spiritual, or certain lingo that you're supposed to use, or certain presentation that we're supposed to have. I cuss a lot. I don't curse anyone, but like I have a
Yeah.
really good time cussing or saying, oh shit, like that I love to
Yeah.
do. I'm not gonna change it because I enjoy it, right? But I'm
Right.
still spiritual, I'm still magical, and I'm still fired up, and I'm still, inspired to help people to change and evolve and heal and grow and expand. But it's finding out who you are and to be that, not try to
Yes.
prove it,
Yeah.
just be. And a lot of people are trying to prove on their platforms and social media and all that stuff. I'm trying to prove that I am a shaman. I'm trying to
Yeah.
prove light worker. I'm trying to prove that I'm a healer, and all this magical stuff. But it's like, just be. And I think when people learn how to just be instead of trying to prove, that's where your magic lives. And I think then we aren't all the same and so stale and stagnant and boring.
Right.
It's being, just really start being and be too much.
Yeah.
I'm learning that me doing too much, my version of what people think is too much, which is my norm,
Yeah.
is where my magic lives. And I'm now unleashing more of my magic because I stopped caring about being too much, because my magic lives in my being too much, and I
Beautiful.
don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but it's like,
I
I'm real extra sometimes, but I've always toned it down because I didn't want to make other people feel uncomfortable, or because I didn't know if the spiritual world would understand that I need a little extra something, like
right.
that's really, I don't want to sit and meditate all the time. I need to walk and meditate, or I need to bob my head and meditate, or I need to scream, or I need to yell. Like I needed something different. And
Yes.
I found that there were a whole lot of women who were just like me who needed something different. But it took for me to have the courage and audacity to be more of myself instead of
Yes.
trying to taper it off and regurgitating what other people felt was the right way to look, be, or do it. It's just do you. And then
Yes.
get to see how much more powerful and how much more magical and how much more open and how many more people will be drawn to the essence of who you actually really are, as you also get to know more of yourself. And I think that's what I would say.
That is beautiful. And it in everything you're sharing, oh my gosh, that is the message that I know that we all need to hear. It's just don't be ashamed of just putting it all out there and being yourself. Because it
That's
really does take so much more energy to hold
right.
back. or to play it safe or to, when I was a third grade teacher, I didn't even know I was teacher Lindsay. And then when I went out to do my work in the world, like I started that first year of being, the teacher Lindsay or the, whatever Lindsay. And it was draining. And once I got rid of that feeling of just doing, it felt different. And I could catch myself when I'm in that mode, like, okay, wait a second, check in and
Yeah.
recognize if I am getting drained, there's a reason that that's happening. So I absolutely love that you shared that.
That's a perfect, I mean, that is such a perfect point, though, Lindsay. It's like I have found that when I am my most tired, because I'm always
Yeah.
tired I'm exhausted when I'm
Right.
excited. I'm
Yes.
pumped up and excited in my exhaustion. I was like, that was so dope. I'm tired. I can't move my legs. But that was so amazing.
Right.
But when I have things, even in coaching clients, or even if I go to an event or a conversation or a job, if I feel like shit afterwards, I am out of alignment.
Yeah. It
Like
feels so different.
if I feel terrible, not tired, because you're gonna be tired when you work and then
Yeah.
movement and doing things. So we're giving energy. But my tired should be inspiring. I should be
Yes.
inspired, like, wow, that was amazing. We exhausted, but that was mind blowing. That
Right.
was cool. That was fun. That was, something that feels good about the tired.
Yes.
And I think I'm in the process of even changing my words of saying like I'm working to like I'm creating. I'm creating some dope stuff instead of
Yeah.
always I'm working because of the energy that it has behind it sometimes.
That's so true. I know I don't like to say I'm working either. Like because it is an energy thing. And it's
Yeah.
funny because when you are experiencing these moments of oneness that you shared before, you start to think about the words, the energy that you're giving, who you're surrounding yourself with. Um, it's all about these little mini things that accumulate into huge things in the end. So, and I love that you mentioned that, you're constantly shifting because that's my philosophy too. It's like if you're
Mhm.
not changing, you might be just staying stuck where you're at and afraid to make the change. But when you're shifting, you're listening to your intuition, and it's okay to do that as leaders,
Yes.
and that's a beautiful thing about it.
And you can always change your mind. I think that's the one thing that
Yeah.
people get as teachers, creators, healers, or like anybody. Actually, you don't even have to be in this field. Is if something doesn't make you feel alive anymore, you can really do something else. You can
Yes.
change your mind. It might be scary, it might be different, but I think not feeling like you're so stuck because you didn't give yourself the option to change your mind if you felt like it. Because this year I might be a healer, next year I might be a singer. I don't
Right.
know. It's
Right.
just whatever my spirit leads me, whatever I'm jumping into, wherever I'm guided towards, whatever makes me feel the most alive, that's the direction that I'm going in. I'm not a one-dimensional person. I'm not that person that's going to do one thing for the rest of my life. Some people can,
Yeah.
and that's amazing. I
Right.
built like that. I'm a creator. I can barely even give myself a title,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
just doesn't fit. I feel like I'm in a box. I feel trapped. And so I'm just over the titles. It's like, yeah, it just depends on who I'm talking to.
Right.
That's
No, I
amazing.
totally get that. I totally get that. I feel like this conversation is going to help so many people listening to it on so many different levels. What I would love to get more information about is any upcoming events that you have. I know you have some retreats and different events. So if you can share that, I would love that. And then share what your website is too, where people could find you.
So the main one would be thesacredcelestial.com. You can find all of my events and retreats on that page. Instagram, my personal Instagram is fine. I kind of link to all of my other pages. So that's at Phoenix White. What else do I have? I have Instagram, Facebook, so those are the same.
Yes.
Events that I have coming up. So I have another floating sound bath coming up in Atlanta, Georgia on the 28th of July, which I'm not sure this is going to be out before then. And then I have a plant medicine ceremony that I'm actually switching to Atlanta, which will be September 14th through 15th, I think.
I
14th.
think that's what you shared. I know I have it
Yeah.
here too. I have
That's
it
either,
here.
I think that's what it
Yes,
is.
September 14th and 15th. Yes. So
Okay.
you're putting that in Atlanta.
I think I'm gonna move it. It was supposed to be in San Diego, but I think I'm gonna move it to Atlanta because we have a space here that we are using now.
Oh, amazing.
We just got that space. And then I have a retreat coming up November 11th in Mexico.
That's going to
I
be
think it's 11th through 16th.
yes, 11 through 16th.
And I have my book that is Redefining Strong. That's on Amazon.
And I'm going to put the link for that too, because I know that's packed with so much information and
Okay.
so much power in that book.
Yeah.
I am so grateful that you were on today. Now, I always ask my guests one last question to close out on. So, my question for you is, if today was your last day, what would you want to be remembered for?
Today was my last day. I would want to be remembered for inspiring people to be more of who they are.
Beautiful. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. If you liked it, leave a 5-star review on iTunes, and remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel too.
If you can think of anyone else that would love this episode, share it with them right now on social media or email. And remember, getting results is a process of learning, applying, and reflecting. Stay consistent and continue to grow every day.